All new tonight, 16 News Now is following the Supreme Court's new term.
And there are a lot of cases to be decided this term, including a focus on presidential powers. Joining us now to talk about this and other big topics ahead this term is Jennifer McElward. She's an associate professor teaching civil rights law and habeas corpus at Notre Dame, right down the road from us, and even a former clerk at the Supreme Court, so she knows what she's talking about. It's always good to see you. Thank you so much for doing this, Professor. Let's start with this. I don't think people realize there are terms when you talk about the Supreme Court. Can you talk about that a little bit?
That's right. The first Monday in October marks the beginning of the Supreme Court's term for the year. And so from October until June, the court hears oral arguments for 2 weeks out of every month, and then they will consider the cases and write opinions as the time goes by. And then you'll see a flurry of activity and opinions coming out in June.
Gotcha.
It feels like the Supreme Court has already been in the news quite a bit this summer, even before this new term has started. Why was that?
So in addition to the merits cases that the court decides from October through June, the court can take emergency petitions, and the Trump administration has been particularly active in asking the court for emergency relief. So those are cases where the court's not ruling on the merits of a question, but just dealing with some kind of procedural puzzle. And so that's what we've seen over the course of the summer.
We heard something today about the Supreme Court making a decision about Ghislaine Maxwell. Is that an example of what you're saying there? I believe that was something that came up early this afternoon.
So that's even a third kind of case where the court just declines to hear cases.
Gotcha.
In terms of considering what are the 80 to 100 cases that it'll consider on the merits every year.
Gotcha. Okay. What cases has the court decided that, hey, we're going to listen to this term?
Right. So as I said, there are between 80 and 100, and the court will continue to grant review in cases. But we do know that there are some big cases coming up. The first I view as a bucket of presidential power cases, as you said. And so the court will consider, for example, does the president have power to levy tariffs without the input of Congress? Does the president have power to fire the head of an independent agency like the Federal Trade Commission? Or does the president have the power to remove a governor of the federal, financial area?
Yeah, in that specific realm, and we've talked about that and reported on that as well. So just to piggyback on that, that's just some of the things that they're going to consider, right?
That's right.
Got it.
Most of the cases that the court takes are things that would never cross the consciousness of any ordinary person or extraordinary person. That's just the court's workaday business. But there are some cases that really capture the public's attention.
Any that come top of mind right now? Of course, this is just the beginning of the first term, but anything that you're watching particularly?
That's right. So just this past Friday, the court granted, it's called a petition for certiorari, which just means the court's going to review the case on the merits. They granted a petition in a gun rights case out of Hawaii.
Wow.
And so the ruling there, or the law there, pertains to whether a person who has a concealed carry permit is allowed to carry a concealed weapon on private property that is open to the public. And so the court over the past few years has really been trying to figure out how does it review gun laws, and to what extent is history relevant, to what extent should it be deferring to the legislature and its public safety evaluations. So that'll be an interesting case to watch.
Last question for you. Voting rights is another case that I know you're looking into. Can you talk about that one as well?
Sure. There's a big case coming out of Louisiana this year. So a couple years ago, Louisiana did its congressional redistricting and intentionally created 2 majority black voting districts. And they did that because they thought they needed to do that in light of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 in order to preserve black political power. The court now has asked the parties to help it think about whether the Constitution, the 14th and the 15th Amendments, which generally bar race discrimination, are incompatible with the decision to create majority black voting districts.
That's a lot. That is a lot you're following. Obviously, there's so many more. I just want to say thank you for just ironing out all those pieces for us, right?
And can I just say, you are such a knowledgeable person. We love having you on, and how cool. You have your 3 daughters here with you today. You have 4. But how cool to be able to watch your mom, answer these questions. That's a really
Thank you. I'm blessed in many ways.
That's awesome.
I love that they're here today.
That's amazing. We've got more of this on WNU.com, just in case you missed this on the air, just in case you're just tuning in. Professor McElward, thank you as always. We appreciate it.